There's a lot of different armor in Helldivers, and thus a lot of different ways to express yourself. Want to look like a budget Sith trooper? Boom. Futuristic Vietnam soldier? Boom. Whatever the hell this armor set is? Boom. You can do that. There isn't a single set of armor I would call downright terrible, looks-wise. But practicality-wise, I'm gonna guess you know what an armor passive does, you know, you're a big girl, you can figure out yourself. But just in case, it's a passive you get while wearing a certain set of armor, and passive is not the right word to describe some of these. Some of these are absolutely nuts. 2 extra stims or grenades, a 50% resistance to explosive damage, that is crazy. That is nuts. That is, like, terminally insane. Please go to the mental asylum right now. That will save your life more times than you can count. But it goes both ways. Some of these aren't even passive. They're completely absent, because even if I do notice the passive taking effect, how is it helping me? Some of these armor sets are really lucky they look good, or else no one would be using them. Looking at you, Truth Enforcers. Because, wow, some of these passives are bad. Really bad. And I thought it'd be fun to go over all of them and tell you why, how to best utilize them, or at least how I best utilize them, and suggest possible balance changes, or possibly full reworks. I don't know, I've not written that far into the video yet. But before I do, just know, this video is for fun, and more of a full experiment, haven't used that word yet. So, my rebalance ideas should not be taken at face value. I have never coded the game. I have never concepted the game. I know stuff like this isn't something you can just add lickety-split. It would take a lot of playtesting and a lot of programming. I just wanted to talk about some stuff from this game I like and try out these new audio settings. I don't know what they sound like yet, but I hope they sound good. But with all that out of the way, let's talk about some armor passives. Some armor passives that are awful. Yeah, that's the transition I'm going with. I'm sorry. I've got nothing better.
My legs! For the love of liberty, my legs!
Okay. Let's be honest. Are we surprised that these two are in this video? We all love these passives, but we can all admit, they're bad. Except for the ones in the Blue Moon occasion, where they're coming clutch.
Freedom never rests!
Democracy Protects has been here since day one, and it's a very simple effect. You have a 50% chance to not die when taking lethal damage. Oh, fucking... Democracy Protect. And integrated explosives just makes you blow up when you die. You know what? Fuck it. Alright. Come on. Come on. I can beat my kill record. I can beat my kill record. Come on. Come on. Oh, I 16. Damn. Do I really need to tell you why both of these are bad? No. Am I going to anyway? Yes. Democracy Protects is literally just gambling with your life, and 50% might sound like a lot. When I'm getting gunned down by a factory strider, that is a lot of 50% right there. This passive is only good against a single instance of high damage, and even then it's not like you're guaranteed to survive it. Against something like a cannon turret, it's pretty good since they fire very slowly, but deal what can generously be called shit tons of damage, if hit directly. So against really high burst damage, it can save your life, right? Well, maybe. The biggest problem is obviously the chance. Unlike Fortify, which gives guaranteed, consistent defense, Democracy Protects is effectively putting your life in the hands of RNGesus himself, and he can be a very spiteful bastard when he wants to be. This thing could trigger 5 times in a row, or not even once. It is complete luck. But obviously, damage comes in multiple forms. Some of it is burst damage, but some of it is not. Unless you ate Lucky Charms sprinkled with 4-leaf clovers, a Harvester Beam is going to affect you like anyone else, because it is consistent, rapid damage that burns, which is also damage over time. So against a lot of threats, this won't really make a difference. Even against high bursts of damage, there's another problem. Follow-up damage is a thing that exists. Even if you survive a cannon turret blast, that thing is going to launch you back like 50 feet. And guess what? That impact will damage you. So even against stuff it's effective against, it's basically 2 coin flips. One for the actual source of damage, and the other for any follow-up damage that might come after. This doesn't even apply to just explosions. You might survive 1 hit from an Alpha Commander, but what about a 2nd or 3rd hit? You might survive a Charger living up to his namesake and ramming into you, but then the subsequent fling into a wall at Mach 3, well, you might also survive that, but something gambling is bad, blah blah blah. Anyway, let me hit these slots real quickly. Even when this thing works, it doesn't really work unless you're extremely lucky. And even if you do get really lucky, you might not even be able to get a stim off in time before something else damages you. Basically meaning you got like an extra second of life and nothing else. While trying to record for this segment, I got exactly one crutch play with this thing, and it was when my own teammate activated my own portable hell bomb. I was later kicked by the same guy because someone else started extraction and I just happened to be right next to him. This is like the one toxic guy I've ran into in the wild. I've actually not ran into other toxic people before this, I'm not gonna lie. It was kind of like a new experience for me. Bots are definitely the best faction to run this for. Cannon turrets, Factory Strider cannon turrets, Fortress turrets, Jesus Christ, these guys really like turrets, tanks, reinforced scout striders, mines, and artillery all deal a bunch of damage in a single instance. While squids and bugs both only have 2 forms of damage that I would say fall under that category, most of their damage comes in the form of like more rapid hits or overtime stuff. Bots are definitely the go-to faction while you're using this. There is actually a secondary effect of this passive though, that I've neglected to mention. When your chest is hemorrhaging, this will prevent the bleed damage. This could be useful for those dire scenarios where your chest is bleeding, but you're out of stims, as the damage caused from that can quickly kill you if left under 10. Oh, hey Vitality Booster, what's up? This effect is nice, assuming you don't have the Vitality Booster. You're not going to have a game where you don't have the Vitality Booster unless you're just starting out. It is easily one of, if not the best boosters, because Jesus Christ, look at all this stuff it does. So despite being one of the few passives that can say it has 2 effects, one of those effects might as well be base kit with how much I see this on my pre-game lobby screen. If this was a fish stick on a stick bad weapon academy video, which in case it wasn't obvious was a huge inspiration for this video, go watch his stuff, it's really good. This would be the part where I tell you how to best utilize Democracy Protects, but truth be told, you can't. Because this passive's ability comes down to complete luck, there's nothing you can really do to combo with it, besides just running defensive irons which could prevent follow-up hits if you survive the 50% chance. And I mean, there's the portable hell bomb too, I guess, but I think this clip... Come on. Survive the coin flip. I survived the 50-50 here, watch, observe. Still gonna say reinforcements needed. Fuck! This passive sucks! Demonstrates it's not foolproof. Also, I'm not gonna lie, I think the portable hell bomb is a lot safer than some people make it out to be. Like, 10 seconds is more than enough time to, like, drop it and get away. Then there's integrated explosives, and I'm not gonna insult your intelligence. You know why this is bad. Having a passive that's exclusively reserved for the worst case scenario is like taking out life insurance for your significant other because they have a cold. You might need it, but if you don't, you're gonna feel really stupid. It is worth saying though, the explosion is a lot more powerful than you probably think. It has heavy armor penetration. This thing can kill chargers in one go. Albeit, I don't think it's worth sacrificing your life to kill one charger when Thermite Charge can do it 3 separate times from a range, and without having to be all like, WITNESS ME! This is pretty much reserved for those cases where you're completely surrounded and know you're gonna die, but want to take a few enemies out with you. It's one last Hail Mary. If you get killed by something with range, you're honestly more of a liability to your teammates because yes, that explosion will damage and probably kill them. And God forbid if they have the armor too. I'm having flashbacks to the void enemies from Risk of Rain, Jesus Christ. It goes without saying, but don't use this against bots. Bots have like 2 melee units. It's a lot more useful for squids and especially bugs, with both of them swarming you with weak melee fodder. I honestly wish I had more advice, but that's really it. If you're so stubborn even in death you want to kill things, bring this. Assuming you're fighting bugs or squids, it'll probably get some use. You take down a bunch of weak enemies and thin out the horde a bit, might even get lucky and kill an Overseer or Charger, but obviously it's just more worth it to bring something that would have kept you alive in the first place. You could keep running in like a dumbass just to get use out of this, and you know what? If you enjoy doing that, who's to stop you? Your team when they kick you, but you probably don't need them anyway, it's fine. We all know these armor passives are kinda bad. But we all also know they are incredibly funny. Democracy Protects isn't really my cup of liberty, but integrated explosives, I love it. It's just the right amount of stupid and chaotic to tickle all the serotonin receptors in my brain. Come on. You really think I'm going to suggest possible rebalances for armor that are just complete memes? Stuff can just be in games because it's funny and stupid. You could probably replace the secondary effect on Democracy Protects and give integrated explosives some kind of secondary effect, preferably one that benefits you while you're alive, but I can't think of any, and honestly, they don't really need them. People are already in love with both of these enough as is. But Arrowhead, please, for the love of God, give us Democracy Protects on something that isn't medium armor. I am begging you. I don't really have a way to end this, so
Water. Earth. Fire. Air.
We got another group segment because it feels kinda weird to cover all the elemental passives separately, so you get a triple whammy. Don't say I don't do nothing for you guys. All three of these passives give a huge decrease to elemental damage from a specific source. Hey, no, not yet. Let's just pretend you don't exist for a bit. Inflammable decreases fire damage by 75%, meaning you can actually stay on fire for a little while now instead of dying in like 2 seconds, because as we all know, fire is known for killing you incredibly quickly. Out of the three, it definitely has the most applications because there is a lot of stuff that can set you on fire in this game. 2 weapons, 2 grenades, 6 different stratagems, barrels, Hulk Scorchers, and fire tornadoes can all set you ablaze. It also drastically decreases the double-edged sickle's self-damage, and with a vitality booster it basically negates any damage it can deal. Sounds like a lot. Let's narrow it down. Unless you are actively trying, hitting yourself with these 5 stratagems is very hard and not practical because the stratagems explode as well and this doesn't give any resistance to explosive damage. As long as you have the faintest idea of how safe distance works, you're fine. Normal incendiary grenades are also very hard to actually damage yourself with, once again assuming you pass kindergarten and have like basic critical thinking skills. It's a little bit more helpful on the flamethrowers. Being so close range means you can much more easily ignite yourself, but so long as you're moving backwards and show some trigger discipline, setting yourself on fire is rare. Hulk Scorchers are very manageable with the armada of stuff that can kill them, plus dodging their fire is very easy once you get the hang of it. And as for the double-edged sickle, impact, incendiaries, barrel, and fire tornadoes, well, okay, I'll give you that. Fire tornadoes in and of themselves aren't too bad, but you're often not by yourself in this game. Against hordes of enemies, they can basically create walls of fire and block you in unless you want to burn yourself. And barrels can often get set off by enemies or stray bullets, but can be very hard to notice. And they knock you down while setting you on fire, meaning you can't stim, basically making them death sentences if you're too close to one when they explode. Impact incendiaries honestly just feel like they set you on fire when they feel like it. I don't know if that's just me. And the double-edged sickle is definitely improved if you have this armor. You can fire for like 20 uninterrupted seconds and it feels great. It sucks how there isn't any other armor that allows for the use of this gun but offers more utility on top of that. Hey, get out of here, we're still pretending that you don't exist. So basically, if you hate barrels, fire tornadoes, or really like the double-edged sickle and or impact incendiaries, this thing is great. Otherwise, why? Setting yourself on fire isn't even an immediate death sentence, assuming you have eyes and ears. When you get set on fire, as long as you dive immediately, the damage you take will be bad, but nothing a quick stim can't fix, assuming you're not already on death's door when it happens. This doesn't make me immune or near immune to fire. The damage is still very noticeable unless I'm wearing the heavy armor variant, so I'll try to put myself out as soon as I can, just like I would if I didn't have the fire protection. So again, all I can really ask is, why? I guess it makes it so that I don't need to immediately stim or can save me if I get lit up at low health, but I just went on a rant about how setting yourself on fire is hard so long as your soft spot is gone. This is pretty much just here if you're really reckless or impatient with your fire and don't want to get punished as hard. That or your teammates are just throwing it around indiscriminately, in which case, valid, that is very annoying. But hey, at least there's a small handful of things that can set you on fire. The amount of things that apply gas or arc damage just reach the double digits. Collectively. I put electro. Wait. I put electoral. Yeah, I put electoral. Why the fuck did I put electrical? I am a fucking... Electrical conduit decreases arc damage by 95%. Sounds like a lot, but getting zapped will still take a good chunk out of your health and slow you down. It's definitely better than dying immediately, but you can't just tank arc hits with this thing. Not that there's much damage to tank anyway. Most arc damage comes from the actual Helldivers themselves with arc weapons and Tesla towers. Remember that talk we had about safe distance? Same applies here. Tesla towers, don't get too close to them, you're fine, just destroy it when you want it gone. And you can't even damage yourself with your arc weapons. Sure, teammates can, but you're really gonna run this armor to reduce the damage of 2 weapons. The only faction who use arc damage are the Illuminate, and it doesn't really make much difference. Watcher arc damage isn't very high. Harvesters only do it when someone is within sniffing distance of them, and the Illuminate Tesla towers aren't nearly as bad as some people say. Why? Let me break it down for you, Mark. Tesla towers do not attack you when you're prone. This applies to your ones as well, but unless there are no other enemies around to get zapped, it's more worth it to just destroy it when you want to get rid of those ones, because the arc damage can still rebound off of enemies to you. But Illuminate Tesla towers only attack you. You don't have to worry about that arc damage chaining from someone else to you. So when you see one, just prone as quick as you can, then get up, run for a few seconds, and then dive again. It's foolproof. Assuming you don't have a guard dog. It will attack the guard dog, and obviously the arc damage will then hit you too. You can also just, you know, use your eyes and ears and keep out of line of sight if you see one. That's also an alternative. There aren't many applications for this, and even when it is working, you're still taking a good chunk of damage and getting slowed. It's the same problem Inflammable has. It's not worth using a hyper-specific armor passive to counter something that basic game sense can help you avoid. Unless you have teammates that are very sloppy with their arc equipment, you won't need this. But I did find one use. Normally getting close to Harvesters is a death sentence, but with this armor, you can negate a few hits before you have to stim up, and flamethrowers are very effective at dealing with Harvesters. So if you really want to torch Harvesters without dying, this armor is great. And you know what? It's actually kind of fun. Practical? No, not at all. You're probably going to get swarmed by a million Voltless and Overseers doing it. But it is a lot of fun. Still not very practical. There are a million ways to take down Harvesters that don't involve close quarters, but fun? Definitely. Finally, there's Advanced Filtration, which decreases gas damage by 80%. Despite not having a way to naturally work in-game because there is not a single enemy or environmental object that creates gas, I actually think this is the best out of the 3. The resistance is really good. Gas is nothing more than little bits of chip damage now, and with the heavy armor, I found this out, with the heavy armor, it just will not damage you at all, like tenfold. It will not damage you anymore, so you are completely immune to it with the heavy armor version of this. You can easily stay in clouds of it for like 20 seconds before you have to use a stim. This can actually make dropping gas grenades or strikes on yourself a viable tactic. Especially with it confusing, slowing down, and spreading out enemies. It gives you a lot of breathing room, no pun intended, and works really well for melee builds. It also makes using the dog breath much less risky now, because if it just decides to spray you down with a whole canister, it likes to do that sometimes, you're losing like single-digit health. I don't think it magically makes this armor great, don't get me wrong. It does nothing for the sterilizer to like the 3 people who do use that weapon, and I am one of those 3 people who use that weapon. You should join us sometime. Due to the gas not lingering, the damage you take won't be anything to worry about, and being able to camp in clouds of gas can be good if you're getting overrun and need the space. You could have just used that gas on the enemy before they got to you. It slows them down and confuses them, making it really effective crowd control. It still has the same problem, albeit to a lesser extent. The gas still damages you, unless you're wearing the heavy armor version, so it's not like I can just live in my gas clouds. You will eventually have to stim, and gas works perfectly fine from a range, so even if I do bring a full gas load out, I don't really see a use for this. Sure, it helps when this stupid fucking dog breath drone decides to just spray me down with the whole fucking canister. Jesus Christ. But he doesn't do that super often, so I can live without this armor. All 3 of these passives have the same issue. They prevent damage from sources that doesn't really need preventing. They all basically force you to spec into a playstyle. They all suck against automatons because gas and fire don't really do anything against them, and Tesla towers will get destroyed immediately against bots. And just because you can resist the damage, doesn't mean that your teammates can.
Calling in reinforcements. I'm sorry!
But there's also a huge elephant in the room. Acclimated, the cooler younger brother of the elemental passives. This thing completely blows the other 3 out of the water if you want to prevent elemental damage. A 50% damage resistance against all elemental types as well as acid? Why am I not just gonna run this? Sure, the resistance isn't as good, but 50% is still a lot. You can definitely tell the difference, but trust me, it doesn't matter. I can resist gas damage pretty well. I can stay on fire for a bit. I can tank a Tesla Tower hit all at once. This actually gives you variety. Want to mix fire and gas? Now you can. So if I do set myself on fire, I won't be as punished as hard, or if I want to go into my gas for a bit, that's a valid option instead of being locked into one path. And it has acid resistance, which makes it really good against these guys. It still isn't all that good against robots, but against squids and especially bugs, it is a godsend that allows you to get really creative with the stratagems you pick, and completely kills any chances these three have of ever being good. You're only ever going to want to pick these if you're making your entire build around the element they protect against, and even then, only fire can really pull that off. Gas doesn't have a fourth stratagem. Well, it does, but for some reason gas mines still aren't available normally. And arc, you get one stratagem. Plus, neither of these two have primary or secondary weapons that damage you. And to tell you the truth, even if they had enough stuff to make full loadouts for all of these, I still think I'd pick Acclimated. I'd rather min-max than spec all my points into one thing, and I feel like a lot of people would share that sentiment. So, how could you fix that? There were a few rework ideas that I had. The first one could just be furthering the damage resistance, making the fire and gas resistance something like 90% and the arc resistance, I don't actually know if you can get much higher than 95%. Still make it so that they deal damage, but even less now, enough to make it trivial. Is it OP? Maybe, but when it's resistance against one element, you need it to be high. So what if they all just got extra resistances? Acclimated having a unique acid resistance always felt really weird to me, especially considering that the gas armor comes from a warbond called Chemical Agents. So why not just give Advanced Filtration acid resistance too? Albeit 80% is maybe a bit much, you'd have to tone it down, but I think it would fit. Electrical Conduit, give that an energy and laser resistance. Not a 95% one, Jesus Christ, but I don't see something like a 25% resistance being too bad. Especially because the only enemies who use that type of damage are Overseers, Troopers, Devastators, Factory Striders, Shredder Tanks, and the Guard Dog Rover. I know the Guard Dog Rover technically isn't an enemy unit, but it feels like it with how much it damages me. I also thought it would reduce the damage of plasma explosions, but no, those are just regular explosions apparently, if the wiki's telling the truth. And inflammable, shit, we've run out of elements to resist. Screw it. Just give me an explosive resistance. You'd have to make it something like 20-25% because this passive exists, but I think it would fit with fire airstrikes and mines both being explosives. So if you really wanted to drop them on yourself for some reason, this would make it a bit more of a viable tactic. It will also make it so that letting Incendiary Grenade explode in your hand would barely deal any damage, and that would be really funny to me, so that's another bonus. So far, the rework ideas have been increasing the resistances further, or giving them additional sources to protect against. But what if you just wanted to give them a full rework? Well, someone on Reddit already did my job for me, so thanks for that. These were rework concepts I found while making this video for the Electrical Conduit passive, and honestly, if Inflammable and Advanced Filtration also got some kind of secondary ability in accordance to their element, that could be really interesting. You have to make them something different though, because if you create a burst of fire after taking melee damage, you're just asking to barbecue your teammates. It's going to be full on like Meet the Pyro. But giving them some kind of secondary ability that would cause their element to activate would be really cool. I couldn't think of any, but someone a lot smarter than me definitely could. Something like this would definitely be my choice for a rework, but if you just wanted to give them extra resistances, I'll be fine with that too. As is right now though, I don't really think any of them are worth picking unless you just like the way they look, in which case, valid. All of them are just way too situational and way too limited to see major value from. And also, Arrowhead, please, give these two passives heavy armor variants, please. Heavy armor users need something, man. I'm worried if they miss out on another passive, they're gonna coordinate a terrorist attack or something. They just need something. Peak physique is something you'll never have because you're just sitting here watching YouTube, you fat, greasy, pathetic, touch-starved loser. God, why can't you just go do something productive with your life instead of wasting your away watching videos? You're gonna die alone, unmarried, and without children. You absolute nobody. It's also a passive for Helldivers. And I gotta say, this might be the most situational one there is. While you have this perk equipped, your melee damage is increased and your weapon drag is decreased. That's shit. Why? Let me break it down for you, Mark. And trust me, this will take long because there's like 6 things this passive is applicable for. The extra melee damage can technically be used whenever through gun bashing, but I mean like, come on, it's gun bashing. I'm not gonna break down why gun bashing is bad. So really, the improved melee damage can only be used for these 4 weapons. The Constitution is a complete meme. It's fun, but it's deliberately bad. Slow rate of fire, mediocre damage for its really slow rate of fire, can only hold 5 bullets at once, and you have to reload them manually. I guess stripper clips just don't exist in the Helldivers universe. But, to be fair, the melee damage is pretty good. It's 110 by default, so obviously peak physique doubles that to 220. If the actual shooting was good, there would be some value to be had here, but obviously the shooting is not good on this thing. But it does really make me wish more guns had bayonets. That would be cool to see. And as for the dedicated melee secondaries, alright, look. This video is already starting to drag on a bit, so I'm gonna have to summarize my problem with them. Replacing your secondary with a melee weapon is really bad. You lose so much utility, or crowd control, or just raw damage in exchange for what? A weapon with bad damage and awful range that eats away at your stamina, and requires a shit ton of defensive stuff to just ensure that you don't get chewed up in seconds. Even with peak physique, the damage is just okay. Sure, it doesn't use up any ammo, but that's not worth losing almost all of my offensive capabilities for. Any strength melee weapons have, another secondary also has, but they're just inherently better because, you know, they have range. You want something to thin out a horde? Crisper. You want something to clean up stragglers so you don't have to waste ammo for your primary or secondary weapon? Dagger. You want something close range? Well, most of them fit that category, but the Bushwhacker is a pocket shotgun that can fire 3 shells at once. How much more overkill do you want to get? Melee weapons are bad, even with some of the cool tech you can do, and peak physique just makes them suck a little bit less by increasing damage. They force you to run this armor. Their damage by default is awful for all of their weaknesses, and all this does is make them a little bit better. You still have to deal with all the other bullshit that comes from using them. And I know I said it earlier, but honestly, I think gas builds work a lot better for melee. The gas helps spread them out, it slows them down, it deals a little bit of damage over time, and it causes them to attack each other, so I don't even think this passive is the best for a melee build. But there is still some practicality to this. There is like a little bit of a use. It's not a good one, but hey, it's something. I cannot say the same for the improved weapon drag, which for those who don't know what that means, it's just how quickly you turn your camera while aimed down sights. It helps snack between targets a little bit faster, but I play just fine without this. Even for the guns people say it helps, I'll be honest, I don't really feel like I need it. I can use the Eruptor, Dominator, and Heavy Machine Gun just fine. The recoil is more the problem for those guns, but unfortunately, no armor passive can fix that. Oh wait, no, never mind, 2 can. This thing makes melee weapons a little bit more bearable, and can help you snap between targets ever so slightly faster. This isn't a passive, this is just a quality of life feature. The melee part is what bugs me the most, because it feels like they were made intentionally bad just to give peak physique more value. The stun baton deals 50 damage by default. 50. That is less than a Peacemaker or Redeemer shot. I don't care if this thing stuns, I am effectively hitting enemies with a wet paper towel and I have the range of a water gun. Like, be honest with me, have you ever tried running one of these free without peak physique? I have. It is awful. It is the worst thing ever. I know some people love these weapons, and you know what? I'm happy for you. But I don't get the appeal. It's not like I only run meta stuff, but I don't get what's so fun about intentionally gimping yourself for a mediocre at best secondary. Peak physique is beyond situational, because assuming you don't bring one of these 4 weapons, the only use you get is better aim drag, which I don't need, and increased gun bashing damage, which I really don't need. I don't mind some passives being less applicable. I mean, look at servo assisted or scout. They're not going to be useful 24/7, but if I want to go off on my own or airstrike people from across the map, these 2 got my back. This just makes 4 very bad weapons a little bit less bad, and doesn't really allow for any fun combos. You want to get the most from this? Bring the Constitution, a melee weapon of your choice that isn't the stun baton, and maybe the heavy machine gun, kinda depends what faction you're fighting, and there you go. You found the only use I could find for peak physique. If you were gonna buff this passive, I think you just have to buff the melee selection as a whole, make it so that peak physique doesn't feel like a must-have, because weapons and equipment that force you to bring certain passives don't feel like the best game design. Sorry, I'm bringing up servo assisted again, but do you ever feel like you need to run this if you bring a 380 barrage? No, it definitely helps of course, but the 380 works just fine without this. Even with peak physique, melee still doesn't feel good. The damage is just okay, there are still a myriad of other problems it doesn't help with, so please, for the love of God, can melee weapons get buffed? I want them to be good so bad, I want to just run in like a dumbass. I think, globally, they all need damage and range improvements, less stamina consumption, and some kind of utility. This was just kind of one of those crackpot ideas I came up with on a whim, but screw it, I'm the one making the video here. Having a melee weapon in your loadout should give you a speed increase, even if you don't have it out. Not only is that useful when you're actually using the melee weapon, but it gives it some additional utility outside of that. And before you say it doesn't make sense, 2 of the melee weapons are described as lightweight, plus your character doesn't need to carry as much ammo now, so it's grounded in some kind of logic I guess, probably. It would also be awesome to see more melee weapons. Maybe even ones as primary or support weapons, I would be all for that. Assuming melee did get buffed, what do I think you could do about peak physique? Well, I don't know. This is just a hypothetical video, but I'll be honest, I think if you want to make melee good, this just needs a complete rework, because it would make everyone's life so much easier. You can't buff melee weapons too much, with this doubling the damage, it can make them way too good, so you'd probably have to make the damage increase really small, which wouldn't really solve the problem of this feeling like a must-have. So honestly, I'll just remove it entirely. Then you can afford to give them all a good increase to their power, but I don't like the idea of this just not being good for melee builds anymore, so I think it would be cool to give it some kind of reduction to the cost of all stamina-based actions. That's good on its own, but it still synergizes with melee. Diving and sprinting are also tied to stamina, so even if you didn't bring a single melee weapon with you, you'd still be getting some use from this. But you know what? Here's more they came up with while I was making this. Some of them are definitely stronger than others, so you could probably mix 2 of them together because there are a lot of passives that have 2 effects after all, so I don't know, just like take your pick here really. My personal favorite ideas were allowing you to use any primary weapon one-handed, which would let you shoot backwards while running, as well as use your primary weapon with shields and while carrying objects, and letting you use guns without ammo as melee weapons, but I could see that causing a million different problems and being a pain in the ass to code, so I just went with the stamina reduction cost. With a name like peak physique, you could honestly do a lot. You could honestly do a lot for a passive. As situational as it is, there's at least still some use to it. It's not a good use, but a use is still a use. I cannot say the same thing for our last passive today. Hello, this is what I sound like now. I have a fucking cold, so I don't know if I'm gonna sound any different, so yay. I don't even know if I'm gonna put this in the video, this is just a test, but like, you know, yay, fucking, oh, you gotta love being sick, it's fucking amazing. Unflinching is a passive that, despite being awful, debatably the worst, but integrated explosives does give it a run for its money, actually sees a lot of use. Why? Because the armor associated with it is absolutely god tier aesthetics wise. Have you ever seen a fit this fresh? If you wear this for the drip, I gotta respect it. A lot of armor still looks good, but has extra practicality outside of that, but you just care about the fit, and that needs to be admired. If you wear this armor for the passive, you're lying. I don't think there is a single person who calls this passive their favorite in the game, because there is no passive to speak of, and the best part is, there is only a little bit of sarcasm in that statement. It might as well do nothing. If you just read the description, you probably think it's alright. Preventing flinching sounds like it could stop all those times you died because you staggered before you could get a stim off. Turns out, no. All this thing does is reduce aim punch. You know that thing where when you're aiming down sights and you get hit, your diver recoils back and flails around, throwing off your aim? Yeah, it negates that. Also, it makes it so that you start screaming 1 second earlier after continuously firing, so hey, at least it's got something going for it, I guess. The description is a lie, by the way, as well. You actually still flinch. Now, albeit that's only semi-true, your character will still do the flinching animation, but your aim won't be thrown off. So your character flinches, but your aim doesn't. I don't know why you wouldn't just remove the flinching animation altogether, but it looks weird as hell. Honestly, I think you could just remove the flinching animation outright. It is still very easy to tell when I'm being damaged, so I don't think it's going to cause any feedback issues, but I'm ignoring the bigger picture. Removing aim punch does exactly 3 things. Jack, diddly, and shit. It doesn't do anything useful. It could help you return fire during firefights, but this isn't some military shooter where I'm fighting generic soldiers with guns. I'm fighting actual cosmic horrors over here, and I found 3 enemies that kind of fit the description of generic shooty guys, that being Devastators, Scout Striders, and Elevated Overseers. They're the closest you're gonna get to like standard foot soldiers that shoot at you. And I'm not gonna lie, even against them, I didn't really notice this thing helping me. I have fought plenty of these guys without the armor, just fine. There wasn't any kind of significant improvement I could notice. I don't think there has ever been a situation where me or someone else thinks to themselves, damn, I really wish I had unflinching right now. When I'm taking damage, my first thought isn't, ah, damn, I can't aim my weapon properly. It's, oh shit, I need cover. When I'm getting turned into Swiss cheese by a shredder tank, I don't really care if my aim's getting thrown off a bit. I care about surviving. In close quarters as well, I'm not going to try and shoot the enemy who's point blank, I'm going to try and dive away. And not to mention, aim punch doesn't even make it that much harder to hit enemies who are point blank anyway, so it doesn't even help in that scenario. You die very quickly in this game, and there's not even a heavy armor variant, which is really confusing. A passive like this would work best on heavy armor, just, I don't know, screw heavy armor users, I guess. I can't even stretch this segment out. This passive does almost nothing. I've played a good few games with it, and I've barely noticed the difference. Trying to get footage for this has been awful because there's no moment where I can show you it taking effect. I'm sorry, I know this is really short, but I'm grasping at straws trying to talk about this passive because it does nothing. Well, okay, it does one thing, but one thing that I couldn't care less about. If this thing just removed flinching as a whole instead, there would be a bit of value to be had, but no, when I'm getting shot at, my aim isn't gonna go all weird for like a second, woohoo. We all know this passive is dog shit, and that sucks, because outfits this fire deserve an equally fire passive, not the actual fire passive. I know you think my theory about melee weapons being bad because of peak physique was a stretch, but I am convinced that Arrowhead give the best looking armor sets the worst passive because they know people are gonna run them anyway. How would I fix unflinching? Well, actually making it do something would be a good start. I'd make it so the getting hit would just stop any kind of stagger animation, period. It helps with aim punch because you're not going to get that weird thing where your Helldiver will still flinch but continue to shoot the same, and it would stop all those times you die because you got hard staggered and couldn't get a stim off. Honestly, that would be enough. The passive is called unflinching. What else can you do with a name like that? You could maybe give it some kind of recoil reduction as a secondary effect, but 2 passives already have that, so unless you want to reuse the same effect 3 times, you'd probably have to give it some other kind of recoil reduction. Maybe it could reduce the recoil penalty while moving, and I don't know. I know this last segment was really anticlimactic and short, but like, this passive does nothing. There's like nothing to it. I don't know what to say. How can I commentate over nothing? I couldn't even think of a way to organically transition to the outro, so I'm just gonna have Bubble Tea do it for me.
Hi, this is my appearance for the video. I'm literally just being used for a transition for the next segment. Bye!
So what did you think about the video? Did you agree with all the passives put here, or do you think the extra padding is actually the worst thing ever and deserves huge buffs? Because if you think that, it's nice to know my videos are finally popular enough to attract bots because no living breathing person would ever think that. In all seriousness though, this video was obviously very opinionated, so there's a good chance there are passives here that a lot of people like, or passives here nobody likes but I didn't put them in, so it would be fun to see what you guys think. What would you do about some of the passives in this game? I'm sure you can offer way better rebalances than me. If you have anything to say about the many armor passives, let me know in the comments and I'll read it. I get like 20 comments a video, so it's not that much of a read. Besides that, I hope you enjoyed watching this, and if you did, you should definitely not like and subscribe because that would be awful and we wouldn't want awful things happening to me now, would we? Yeah, okay, I'm just gonna end it there. I'm so fucking sick right now.
Check it out, I'm in the house like carpet. And if there's too many heads in my blunt, I won't spark it. I'll put it in my pocket and save it like rocket fuel. Till everybody's gone and it's cool, then I spark it up with my brother. His mama named him Moan, but I call him Moan Lover. And he's more than a cover, he's a quilt. We're putting shit together like the house that John built on a hill. Cause this shit gonna feel like velvet, turtle. My style fits tighter than a girdle. If you hate it, then you can just leave it, like Beaver. But in a day or two, I'll make you a true believer in me. Cause like the alphabet, you'll see that ism kicks a rhyme, not your everyday soliloquy. Like Chef Boyardee, my rhyme is truly cooking. Piece of Matty Rich, cause he's straight out of Brooklyn, New York. I don't eat pork or swine when I dine. I drink a cup of Kool-Aid, not a big glass of wine or a Heineken. If you have time, I'll drop rhyme again.
Do you have a better idea?
Yes, I do.